rat is this. The rats are all like this. The rat goes like this. So the rat's like this. The normal rat is like this. That's the normal rat. Like this, like this. It sniffs. It's like this for quite a while. He's like this. And then maybe he sniffs. You are now a normal rat.
Let's say you're a grandmaster chess player and all you do is play amateurs, and every night you go home and congratulate yourself on what a genius you are because you just stomp these people left, right, and center. It's like, you're not a genius, you're a dimwit.
I'm gonna do something real stupid, and we'll see how it plays out in the end. Shit! What the hell, man? What, do you like this? Do you like this? I'm a fucking child, dude. I don't know what I'm doing. Sorry. Just like beating the shit out of me all day, every day. I can't handle it. What am I supposed to do?
What you should be doing is playing people who are beating you like, well, as much as you can tolerate.
Alright, so today I'm not actually going to be analyzing one of my games. Instead, I'm analyzing a game played by noted internet douchebag Aaron Hansen, played against Dan Avedon, aka Danny Sexbang. This game was played on the Game Grumps YouTube channel, and I'm just going to go through it and analyze it and try to give some pretty basic advice. And I know my regular audience probably won't get much out of this, but this is content that I've wanted to make for a long time, and you know, why not? So starting out, Aaron opens with e4, which is a good move because it follows the three main principles of the opening, which are control the center, develop your pieces, and castle. And this is a multi-purpose move. I'll be saying that a lot in this video, but multi-purpose moves are almost always good moves. This move controls the center via controlling the d5 square, placing a pawn in the center, but also it gets you closer to developing, and that's because you opened up an entire diagonal for the light-scored bishop. That also gets you closer to castling kingside. So it really does all three things, all three main principles of the opening, which is why most people play e4 on move 1. Dan responds with knight f6, which is usually referred to as the Alekhine defense, and it can be pretty dubious, and white can already start chasing the black knight around, but this requires knowing things that are unnecessary to know. Instead, the move that Aaron played, which was knight c3, is a really good move because it simply defends the threat that black made, which was an attack on the e4 pawn, and it also develops a piece and controls the center. So it's a multi-purpose move. It does two of the three main opening principles, so it can't be a bad move. And I think Aaron said in the video, he's like, do you think Magnus Carlsen thinks that was a really good move?
I think Magnus Carlsen is like, damn, that's a good move.
Yeah, probably. Magnus Carlsen has actually had this position, but with black before. And in that game, Magnus played the move e5. And so far we're following exactly a game that was played by former world champion Magnus Carlsen. Now, knight f3 is another really good move. Attacking, making a threat, so we're having momentum along with developing, controlling the center, and getting closer to castling, so knight f3 cannot be a bad move. So Dan responds with bishop to c5, which is considered dubious here, which is a bit strange because, number one, it develops a piece, it controls the center, and it gets very close to castling. So why is this a bad move? He's not defending the e5 pawn, which is one of the things that knight f3 did. So here, Aaron can just play knight takes e5, which he did in the game, and the normal response to this sort of position would be queen to e7, and if the knight moves out of the way, then the e4 pawn is hanging, because now there's going to be two pieces attacking the e-pawn. But here, white can simply play d4 with a tempo on the bishop, putting two pawns in the center, controlling the center, defending the knight. And after something like bishop b4, white can simply just play f3, defending that pawn, and so when the knight is eventually kicked away, the pawn has plenty of coverage. So instead of queen to e7, black played knight to c6, challenging this knight in the center. Now, white has kind of two options, either to retreat or to capture. Aaron tried looking for another option, which would be great if it worked, which d4 in principle I like, because if it works, you're putting a pawn in the center, you're getting more development, defending and attacking at the same time. However, I think this was just a failure to count. The knight and the bishop are attacking that pawn, so it can be captured. Instead, I would like a move like knight c6 or knight f3 better. Knight c6 would be good because while it's a simple trade, black has to damage their pawn structure in order to recapture, and is left with an inferior pawn structure because the pawns are doubled and cannot help each other when they're stacked on top. So Dan sees this, he plays bishop takes d4, and instead of just admitting that this position is equal and doing some trades like knight takes c6, d takes c6, and then trying to develop further, Aaron then does something that I've noticed he does quite a bit, which is when someone makes a threat, or specifically Dan makes a threat, instead of going for like the simple route and just defending the threat, he always goes for complications. He tries to do things in the most creative way possible, which I relate to. But when you're just starting out in chess, it's really hard to even just keep track of what pieces are defending and attacking what. And so complications are not going to be your friend, especially when you're playing someone more experienced than you, like Dan. So bishop f4, I like, again, logically, if you're developing and you're defending at the same time, that's a multi-purpose move. However, again, just a failure to count. This piece is attacked twice, so defending it once will do nothing. Instead, you have to move the knight somewhere or take something like this. So black should definitely just take this piece and be up a healthy 3 points and get ready to castle and enjoy a pretty much winning position. But I don't think Dan saw this. And keep in mind that the board that they're playing with is like just horrible to look at. Even when I'm watching, I don't really know what's going on, and I play chess. So I assume that some of these mistakes are due to the fact that it's hard to process what's going on that board. But Dan goes for d6, attacking the knight a third time. Instead of moving the knight away again, or capturing and doing something about the threat, Aaron goes for another developing move that makes a threat. While this would be a good move, it's not a good move because Dan made a threat first. So d takes e5, black is up a piece, and has pretty good center control, I would say. Because the knights, one little thing is that when the knights are developed like this, and this is why knights are happiest on f3 and c3, together they control every single square in the center. The light knight controls the dark squares, the dark knight controls the light squares. So at this point, it doesn't mean the game is over, especially at this level, so playing on is good. Bishop e3 is played, which I don't love because when you are down material, the last thing you want to do is trade pieces. Because when you're down a piece, if every other equal piece is traded off, the endgame is a lot harder to play because you don't have anything for counterplay, but your opponent has a full piece. And that means that when you are up material, you should trade. So black castles, which is a good move. I'm never going to get mad at anybody for castling, except for sometimes when it's bad, but it's very unlikely to be bad. So h6 is played, probably discouraging some bishop g5 pin on the queen, knight to d5, going into the center, which does hang this pawn on b2, but at this point, I don't know how much that pawn matters. Perhaps in this position, the semi-open file is worth having. So rooks are really good on open files and semi-open files, which are just, these are files and these are ranks. Open files are files without pawns on them, and semi-open files are files with only one pawn, and the person who doesn't have a pawn has the semi-open file. Because think about it, if there was a white pawn here, the rook would just be blocked in. But here, because I don't have a pawn, I have a target. And so when the bishop moves away, I'm kind of eyeing this b7 pawn, which is then keeping this bishop from developing. So it's not so clear as, oh, it's just hanging a pawn. It could lead to something. So instead, black plays knight takes e4, which, yeah, also was a big problem with knight d5. I kind of forgot about that one too. But knight takes e4, c3, attacking the bishop, forcing a trade. And Aaron plays f takes e, which I think is good to leave the knight in the center and create a semi-open file for the f1 rook. However, this position is going to only get more and more challenging as the material advantage is simplified into like an endgame position. So bishop to e6, queen to d3, challenging the knight. And kind of the only way you're ever going to make up for being down material is with piece activity or some sort of attack and momentum. Because long term, you're probably not going to win. But if you can have a short-term win idea like checkmating someone in the middle game, the material advantage doesn't matter because checkmate ends the game. So I like queen d3, knight back to f6. And here, I would even consider rook takes f6 in this position, which is a thematic looking exchange sacrifice just to open the king up. Because of course, queen takes f6 doesn't work because the knight can take. So you're giving up more material, but at the same time, black's king is wide open. And you can start swinging pieces over to the king side and trying to attack. So rook takes f6 would be interesting. Now, if you don't play rook takes f6, you're gonna have to do something because this knight did actually make a threat on the other knight. So 1, 2, 3 attackers and only 2 defenders, that means black will come out on top. And so either taking the knight on f6 or adding another defender seem pretty forced here. Aaron went with h3, which even ignoring the fact that you're not defending the knight here, the only thing about h3 is that every time you push a pawn, you weaken the squares that it was previously controlling. So a weakness is defined as a square that can no longer be defended by a pawn. And weaknesses are interesting because every time a piece moves, it kind of weakens squares it was controlling previously, but the piece can always go back. So like right now the queen is defending this square, and if I go here, I'm not anymore, so it technically kind of weakened the square. But I can always move the queen back to add more control over that square. Permanent weaknesses have to do with pawns and whether a pawn can control something or not, because pawns are the only things that can't go backwards. So when you push a pawn in front of your king, not only are you weakening squares around your king, you're doing so permanently. So you must be very, very careful whenever you create holes near the king. Because it's like if this is your castle and this is opening a window to create luft or air for your king, that can either be an escape route for your king or an entry point for someone to come into your house and kill you. So after h3, Dan gobbles up the knight on d5. Rook d1 is quite a decent try because adding a rook to the same file as the queen can shape the position for tactics because it is creating a pin of sorts. e4 here I also like, just kicking the knight out of there. You don't want to let these fuckers get too comfortable in the center because that's where they're happiest. And Dan plants the knife on f4 here. So queen takes d8, rook takes d8, b3. I think originally this bishop was just forgotten. I think originally rook e1 was played and bishop takes c4, which is not great. I don't have to explain that one. But there were takebacks. b3 happened. b6 happens. h4. A move that makes little sense. At this point it's really hard because you're just down 2 pieces, but in general, kind of the worst thing that you can do is when you don't know what to do, just pushing a pawn randomly. Because as we established, pushing pawns creates weaknesses. And it's a really common thing I see amateurs and beginners do, is just pushing a pawn just because they don't know what else to do. But then they're just leaving themselves with more weaknesses. So now not only is g3 weak, g4 is weak permanently. Instead, I would choose a move that actually has more of a point to it, which is hard to do because this position is pretty bad. But these are just general advices in case anyone finds this useful. So h4, c5 is a great move because now we have the strong pawn chain pointing towards the center, and maybe eventually a pass pawn will get made. g3, trying to kick that fucker out. Now h3 is the weakness, and the knight hops in there, happy as can be. King h2. So now, maybe there's tactics. The bishop is now tied to the knight on h3, so if the bishop ever moves away, the knight will be hanging. And not only will it be hanging, it'll be nearly trapped. So black does have to be careful here. So rook takes d1 is a good move to play, because now f2 is available. And you can play bishop takes c4, knight f2, and the game is pretty much over. I'll speed through it a little bit. So rook d7 is good because rooks, not only do they love being on open files and semi-open files, they love being on the 7th rank. If you ever get 2 rooks on the 7th, we call that a pair of blind pigs. Because what does a blind pig eat? Whatever's in front of it. And 2 rooks here would be really strong because you can just start snapping everything off on the 7th rank because their power doubles when they're side by side. Another reason why connecting the rooks in the opening is a good thing to do. So knight c6, king g2, and from here, pretty much Dan just cleans up all the pawns and eventually promotes his pawn. I'm I'm not sure what level Dan is here, but I know that he went to chess clubs as a kid, I think, or recently. But it seems like he'd probably be at least, like, I don't know, like 12 or 1300. In the opening, I'm not sure what happened because there were pieces just hanging, but he could just be rusty. He has a very solid base of understanding of how and he's always trying to give Aaron advice, but he doesn't really listen. The point of this video is that chess is not a game for smart people. Being good at chess does not make you smart. This is the main theme that we keep seeing. It's not true. Dan is more experienced and has done it more. No one just comes out the pussy playing like Magnus fucking Carlsen.
I think anybody can draw.
Yeah, you do.
And it's true.
Could you not draw at all, like when you started?
Of course. Do you think I came out the pussy drawing fucking Mozart?
I do.
And when someone beats you at chess, that doesn't mean they're smarter than you. It just means they're better at chess than you. I also kind of wanted to do a video where I analyze Little Joel's chess videos. Those might be a little bit more instructive because he is, I think, like, he's actually playing games on chess.com with a rating. They're like rapid games. So I don't know. I like to make content on YouTube, but I don't always want it to be, the only way I can do it is if I'm playing chess over the board, because sometimes I would rather die than do that. So I don't know. I hope Daniel enjoys this video. That's the only person I can think of who would like it. I don't know.